Good morning. Happy Wednesday, June 1st. It's the first day of June. I hope you're having a good morning so far. Today or this week while I'm filming this is my son's last week of school. And so today they have a field trip and we are headed to the beach. We live on the coast. And so we're headed to the beach. And so I'm up early this morning. That's kind of why I look like this. I have my bathing suit on. But I really wanted to get this done before I left because I have some great information to share with you today. And I wanted to keep up with our challenge. So let us get started. Again, my name is Anastasia Aruz. I'm a child and family therapist, and I'm also working as a family coach. And I have this group in order to help families in a larger scale than just in my practice. So hopefully this presentation today will help you as we move through the summer. And hopefully you completed the homework from yesterday. You worked on your calendar, you came up with your list of things to do, and that what you wanted to do this summer, your goals you had. What we're going to talk about today is what kids need. So this might alter your list and your calendar a bit, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today, was to give you the chance to kind of reflect. So today is going to be about reflecting on what you created yesterday. Is it going to work? Is it too much? Is it something our family can handle this summer? And we're going to talk about what kids need and also what you need. You might remember some of this if you ever took a psychology class in high school or college. And it's just one theory. We're going to talk about Maslow today, and it's going to be quick. And I will not bore you, I promise. It's interesting. I find this stuff fascinating. And when I worked in the schools, a lot of times I would go back to this in my head and think about, oh, this is what's going on with this kid, and that's why he's acting or she's acting the way they are. So let us move forward so we don't waste any time. So what do your kids need? So if you remember Maslow, he's the guy that came up with the hierarchy of needs. So if you look at the top of the pyramid, you can see self-actualization. And so that's whenever you're becoming the most you can be for yourself, right? That's the top of the pyramid. That is what we're all striving for. That is when you're going to achieve your highest potential and achieve everything that you want to achieve, right? So that's going to be the one, that's going to be adults typically, and people at the top of their fields. All right. So then if you look down at the next one, the green, it's esteem. This is a lot of adults are here, right? So this is where your self-worth comes in, the respect for yourself, respect for others. It's like if you would like status or recognition, freedom. It's those that are probably also close to the top of their field. They're working at a very high level. So that's the esteem. Then if you go down, you can see there's love and belonging. And this is whenever you're at the stage where you're focused on friendships, intimacy, family, a sense of connection with people. You also want to be connected with people. This is where you are part of a group, like with your church or your family or your community. This is where you are successful in that, right? Then we get down to safety needs. This is feeling safe and secure, and not just physically, but also emotionally. And this is one I'm going to talk about a lot today because I think we get stuck here a lot. And I noticed as I work with kids, this is a lot of where the breakdown happens, right? We all think we're at love and belonging, but I think a lot of times our families are at that safety needs. And we're going to talk about that today. This is whenever you're learning how predictability and order and control in your life keeps you stable, right? You need that for emotional stability. And then finally, the physiological needs. Now, this is going to be the just basic needs, the air, food, water, shelter. Most of us have that at this point. And what's interesting is Maslow also puts sex in there, that we need that as a physical, which is true, we do. And that's because he put that in there because that's how we create life and move to then have more people and procreation. And we also need warmth. So I'm assuming most of us have the physiological needs. And if not, that is what you need to be focusing on at this point and not so much a calendar, right? So if that is where you're at, that's where you're at. What Maslow feels like is we all have this inborn desire to move to this blue self-actualization stage. Now, even if you don't agree with any of what I'm talking about, it is just something to think about. It's one theory. I think it's interesting. And the reason I wanted to bring it up today is it will give you a sense of empathy for your kids, for your cousin's kids or your sister's kids, and you'll kind of understand one aspect of why kids act how they do or why adults are acting how they do. Because if you're not feeling safe, either emotionally or physically, you are not going to have a lot of strong friendships. You're going to struggle with intimacy. You're going to struggle with family and a sense of connection. So just I want you to be thinking about that as we move through these different slides today. So for the safety and the security and the protection, the reason that we need this is because it creates a calmness. We need schedules, we need routines. It helps us process better. It helps us with predictability. When we have all of that in place, then we will feel safe, right? If we know all the things that are going to happen during the day, if we have our routines and our schedules, we will feel safe, which will then help us be able to create friendships and be able to create connection. So, with all that being said, if you have a child that is back here at the level 2, where your family could be going through a lot right now, you could have had a death in your family, or you're moving. I live in a military community, so there's a lot of change with that. And so what happens is these kids, a lot of them are in that safety section, right? And they are not, and not that the parent is doing it on purpose. I don't think anyone's doing it on purpose, but they're there. They're not feeling safe necessarily because they're moved. Everything is changing. And whenever there's change, it creates a sense of not being safe. And so it's our job as parents to make sure we put those and put the things in place where our kids do feel that way. So think about what your family is going through. Is there a death? Are you moving? Is there a divorce happening? Are you and your spouse struggling? Do you have any illnesses, either mental health, physical illnesses in your family, any addiction issues? Any of that stuff is going to put you right in that safety section. And it's going to be really hard to move to those next sections. And so I just want you to be thinking about that as we move forward. And the reason why is because I don't want you to beat yourself up. You've created this calendar and this plan for the summer. And as you move along and it's just not working out, I want you to go back to this, what we're talking about today, and think about what's happening in my family. What is it that's kind of blocking us from being able to have the connection, being able to have the freedom to move forward? There's something happening, right? So it's really taking a hard look. And I think this is the hardest part of this theory, is because it really makes you think about what's happening in your family. And it could mean big changes, which makes it hard to admit and takes a lot of self-reflection. So this safety and security is one of the ones that I see as the hardest to deal with and the hardest to get through, because it takes a lot of self-reflection on the parent's part. Because if these things are not happening, your child is going to struggle. They're going to struggle in school with following directions. They're going to struggle in going to camp. They're going to struggle on a vacation with a lot of things happening, because their anxiety is going to be spiked because they're not in that safety zone. They don't feel safe internally. And if a child does not still feel safe internally, they cannot move up, right? So it's something to really, really think about as we move forward. So most of our kids, we want them at that 3 and 4, right? We want them at that section of love and belonging and esteem, right? We want them to where they start to feel where they want to have friendships. They want to connect with family and other kids. They want that sense of connection on a team or in church. And then they want, as they get older, maybe in high school, they want that recognition for doing really, and even younger, for doing well on a test. But if they're down there in the orange and the safety needs, they don't even care about a test, right? They're still internally trying to figure out what's safe and what's not safe. And what's interesting about all this isn't cognitive, right? This can all be implicit, right? This could all be part of the implicit memory. So they don't even realize. And so, like when I would work in a school, I have an example of a child, and this goes all the way down to the physiological needs. So we're down at the red. I had a child, let's call him Ben, okay? So Ben, I was working in the inner city at a time, was a sweet child. He'd come into school. You'd think everything was fine, but something would trigger him, right, in the class. And so at the time I was a school counselor, and something could trigger him, whether it would be homework or a test or another kid taking his pencil or just regular things you wouldn't think would get a kid really upset. Well, as we get to know him and his family, they didn't have proper housing. They didn't have food. The mom was always gone at night. He was taking care of himself. Now, mind you, he was in 2nd grade. So right there, we're at the red. We're at the physiological needs. So there's no learning happening. He's definitely not trying to have any friendship or sense of connection. He's just trying to get his basic needs met. Now, could he verbalize that? Not really. but it creates a lot of frustration for the other kids. It creates a lot of frustration for the teachers. And so that's just an example of if you're not getting those basic needs, right, met, you cannot go up. You cannot have those other things that we all want to happen. So as if you think about your calendar for the summer and you think about what your plan is, think about where your family's at and what is going to work for your family. All right, so let's move on. So I think hopefully you got a handle on the safety and security part. And if not, if you have any questions about it, please let me know. And this is a place too where if you're thinking about it, reach out to a therapist in your area or someone that can help you and for your child, because this is where they could really get the assistance and then they're going to move on to that next part. So the love and belonging is that friendship. It's where they trust people, they accept people, they're ready to be part of the community. They like physical affection. They do pretty well in school with others, with the teachers. They're enjoying life for the most part. They're feeling love and connected. And so that's where we want people for the most part. We want them in that section. But here again, if they're struggling, it's because some things are happening underneath that their needs aren't being met. And so you have to really think about that and think hard as a parent, what is happening with your family. And that's the hard part because it's a lot of self-reflection. And I know even for me and my family, I have to do that too, right? It's just like anybody. We have to really self-reflect and think about what does my child need? Am I giving that to them or am I just thinking about what I think would be fun for the summer? Okay, so esteem, that moves up to the 4th level, right? So this is whenever you have that kid, and you could have one of these kids, right? They feel good about themselves, they're very self-confident, all the kids like them, they feel important, they make contributions. They're the kid that's gonna be like, I think I wanna take a class snack, or they're helping you prepare for the trip. They're getting all the things together for your trip. They are packing lunches for you. They are helping you in a way that they're not trying to help you to make you feel better. They're doing it because they want to make a contribution. It's their intrinsic motivation to help you. But now, here again, if they don't have those other things, if they're still in that love and belonging, they're not going to be as motivated to do the next level. So don't expect that from them, right? So you need to expect from them what they're capable of handling. And I think that's hard for us too, because as parents, we're rushing, we're in a hurry, we're stressed. And so we might try to put more on them than they're ready for, right? Now, some kids they're ready to do all these things. They're ready to feel important and do all this stuff for you, but other kids are still they're not, right? So just put the pressure on where they need to be and help them just move through it. And then finally, now this slide I think is funny because this is the self-actualized, and this is kind of where we're all striving. And I was on the internet just like looking who's self-actualized. So these are just my list, and I think you're gonna laugh at one of them. So there's Gandhi, who of course we think of Gandhi in that way, Viktor Frankl, Albert Einstein, and get this, Taylor Swift. Who would have thought? So I went and I started reading about why someone on the internet thinks she's self-actualized. It's because she's done what they say self-actualized is, right? She's achieved her fullest potential. She is at the highest level of her field, and she's accomplished pretty much almost anything a person can accomplish. Now, I don't necessarily agree that she's there or not there. I don't know, but I just thought that was funny that Taylor Swift is on there. Eleanor Roosevelt, Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama was on there. I'm trying to think who else. There was a whole list of people that are, but I think we're all working in that at some point, right? I don't think if you would ask any of these people if they're alive today, they feel that way. I think they're probably in that stage and they're just constantly working at the top of their field, trying to just help the world, right? So at that point, you're really helping others. You're really working to achieve what you can for the whole world, not just yourself or your kids. So we're really not talking about that for our families, but if you are this way, please let me know. I would love to get to know you. All right, so finally, I want you to think, right? So we're here, this week is all about just kind of self-reflection, planning for the summer, what's gonna work for you. What are your child's struggles? Where do they fit on the chart? Where do you fit on the chart? So if you look back, I'll go back really quick so you can see. Where are you, right? Are you feeling like you have all your red, right? You got all your physiological needs. Are you in the safety section right now? Are you having some issues where you don't think you're not feeling as safe emotionally? There's things happening in your family where you're not feeling as safe. Or are you in a really good space, right? Where you're in that love and belonging, you're in that esteem. And I think we can move up and down through them all the time, right? I think we're always kind of moving through them. So give yourself some grace. If you're not really up there right now, it's okay. So give yourself grace. Know that that's where you're at. And I think that's the first step, right? It's just understanding where you're at. Okay. So where do you fit? All right. So your homework for today is just think about how this is going to help your family. I want you to keep a journal this week of your feelings and thoughts about what you need, right? As a parent, where are you? How is this calendar and these things that you want to do this summer going to look? Do you need to go back and revisit it, right? Do you maybe need to build some more activities in there that are connection based? Maybe you need to build some therapy in there. I don't know. Maybe working with your kid, they're struggling with friendships at school. So maybe one of the things you do is you are doing play groups at your house with other families and you're monitoring, right? So if you have a kid that is struggling at school with friendships, right? And they're struggling with connecting with others, they're internally struggling with their safety. They're not feeling emotional safety. So maybe invite another child over to play. Now, this doesn't mean let's play and let's go play Xbox. This means let's play and you're there, right? And you're coming in and out of the room a lot because you're monitoring and you're chiming in when needs to be chimed in. And you're listening, right, to what's happening because you can use that as a teaching moment. So after the play date's over, you go back and you kind of reflect with your child. And I don't mean you sit them down and be like, hi, we're going to reflect on the play date. You just kind of talk about it in a very casual way and you listen to their conversations as this play date's happening. So you kind of know where their struggles are. So maybe that's something you need to build in for the summer with your family. Or maybe it's not. Maybe your child wants to move. Maybe you see them at that fourth level where they're kind of wanting to help more, wanting to have more leadership activities. So maybe spend some time at home with them this summer, teaching them. So maybe they want to cook. So giving them all the responsibility to cook. So you're not holding them back, right? Because you might have that kid that wants to move forward and you're always like, well, they're only 7 or they're only 6. But you have a kid that's really special, has all those other things met, and they want to move forward. So letting them do that, right? And taking your fear away and letting them be. Because can you imagine, I'm sure Taylor Swift at 7 or 8 wasn't just our typical kid, right? I'm sure she was definitely up there and her kids let her express herself and let her move, right? So I want you to keep a journal thinking about what you need, what your kids need, what your family needs. All right, so let's review really quick. How is your calendar and your summer list coming along? And are you being honest with yourself about what can be accomplished this summer? Okay, so really give yourself some grace. Think about what can be accomplished. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you think, if this was meaningful for you. I hope it was. I wrote notes just so I would not forget because I knew I had a lot to say about this. And I just wanted to make sure. Just be mindful. And so if you're thinking to how does this relate to summer, one more time, if you have a child that's at one of those lower levels internally, they're going to struggle with a lot of things. So being mindful of that and really thinking about how you can help them, because this is a great time block to help them because you're going to have that time. They're going to have time. So you can make the time, but maybe taking a day off work or really planning those activities where you're going to help them kind of work those things out for themselves. All right, you guys have a great day. Enjoy this first day of June. Bye.